Different types of malware explained. Malware is a malicious bit of software or code that is designed to do harm to one's computer, specifically, the operating system that they use, whether it's Windows, Mac OS, or on mobile, Android and iOS, but even Linux, BSD, and Unix-based systems are prone to malware too. So in this video, I will be going over some of the different types of malware, what they can do, how you can avoid getting them, and so on and so forth, so keep watching to learn more about different types of malware. Firstly, I'll start off by looking at a virus. A computer virus is an infection that causes harm to one's operating system by being installed through traditional software executables. Viruses were very common back in the late 90s and early 2000s. However, since about 1995 and onwards, many antivirus solutions have been developed to fight against all forms of malware, and as such, many different solutions have been released, both for free personal use and professional business use. The professional versions of antivirus software often have more protection and features, but they do come at a cost, and oftentimes, it can be expensive, especially in the business setting. However, companies must do what they have to do in order to protect themselves against any form of malware. Some forms are nastier and worse than others. Take ransomware for example. I'll explain what ransomware is later on in the video, but getting back to a virus, viruses were most commonly received through downloading software, usually from unknown sources or non-reputable links, which was often how many users got their PCs infected, especially on Windows. This is why Windows used to have a reputation for being the least secure operating system. Back before Windows 10, there were little to no defenses built into Windows. The user account control was a minor improvement that came with Windows Vista and has stayed in Windows ever since. However, if you always click yes on something, or you are unsure if the software is safe to run or not but decide to run it anyway, you'll most likely become infected, especially if you don't download your programs from reputable sources. The same goes for downloading operating system ISO files. Getting them from less reputable sources other than the specified company or developer, it can do more harm than good, as the operating system, regardless of what it is, Windows, Mac or Linux, it can easily be spoofed with someone's technical skills, and Linux is free and open source, so more people do have the potential to write malware for it. However, the majority of users are not on Linux. That's one of the reasons Linux isn't targeted as much by hackers. That's not to say there is not any malware or hacks that can easily infect or ruin a Linux system. There certainly have been many known cases of malware, particularly ransomware, getting on Linux systems. Ask any Linux administrator, and they'll tell you that Linux is not impervious to malware. Overall, viruses are not as big of a problem today as they were even 10 to 15 years ago. However, other forms of malware have risen in popularity due to their complexity and advancements. One of the most notable examples of this would be ransomware. Ransomware is basically a piece of malware designed to hold your files hostage for money, and even if you pay up, it's not always guaranteed that you will get your files back. Ransomware is one of the most dangerous forms of malware in existence. It's even been known to infect Android devices. And how do you get ransomware exactly? Well, you'd have to be very unlucky, but some websites can contain downloads for specific types of ransomware. Not only that, you can get ransomware from visiting an infected site, or downloading a potentially malicious app that has ransomware bundled with it, but there are also a number of other reasons. However, the most common way people get this type of malware is through downloading software that has ransomware. Or the ransomware is the actual software itself disguised as a normal application. This also makes it potentially easier for the less tech-savvy users to get, so if you fear losing all of your important data, make sure you're prepared to spend a bit of money on a professional antivirus that has ransomware protection built in. Not many free ones offer this. You usually have to pay to be protected from ransomware, especially in real time. So I would highly recommend you look into an antivirus solution, paid for, if you want to be protected from this. However, It is not going to guarantee you will be protected from ransomware, but it's better to have real-time protection that tries to stop ransomware from being able to get on your device, rather than having limited protection and having ransomware get on there much more easily. I should also mention that ransomware can easily infect surrounding devices on a network, which makes it all the more scary and dangerous. So it's better to be safe than sorry. Protect yourself now with a good, reputable antivirus solution. Another particularly nasty form of malware are Trojans. Trojan obviously coming from the Trojan horse. Trojans are malware that come with unnecessary applications with the software you download. They are also known as potentially unwanted apps, PUA, and Trojans have mostly affected Windows systems, although Mac OS has also had cases of Trojans infecting it too. And for Linux, it's much harder to get Trojans as the majority of software for Linux is free of any kind of malicious code or intent, although there probably has been cases of Trojans on Linux too. And Android has also had some notable cases of Trojans, particularly from users who often sideload apps. Trojans install other applications alongside the one you have. Even some normal software can include extras that users often don't ask for. Take Avast antivirus for example. It comes with the Chrome browser, and not everyone wants to use Google Chrome, but unknowingly, they install it on their system. You have to make sure that whatever you install, it has an easily accessible option to not install other software, if the software you're installing has extra bits of software. I am not saying Avast is bad, all I am pointing out is that even some reputable software can come with potentially unwanted software. You're likely to not have this issue if you use free and open source software however, unless the software has been infected or designed to put Trojans on your system. But this rarely happens with free and open source software. I will leave it up to you guys as to why that is. Another nasty piece of malware that exists out there is a rootkit. Rootkits are different to other types of malware because they are much harder to remove. They are not easy to find, even with antivirus programs, and they can unknowingly get on your system through malicious software or code. And rootkits are often used by attackers to steal data from one's operating system. Rootkits are also one of the most dangerous forms of malware out there. A rootkit can easily conceal itself, which is why prevention is better than cure, especially in a situation where you get a rootkit on your device. Rootkits have been known to infect Windows, Mac OS, Android, and some may have infected Linux and other systems too. So you have to be extremely cautious when downloading software, because this is one of the ways rootkits get onto your device in the first place. Keyloggers are a more simple type of malware but are just as bad as other types of malware. They are also much harder to detect and see the presence of them. Keyloggers record every single keystroke you type, including spaces, letters, numbers, symbols, whatever it is you type. This is really bad because hackers can easily see your password or sensitive information. If your device has a keylogger loaded or installed, keyloggers often get onto the operating system through other malicious software, but they can also be a result of a hacker attacking you, using special tools that allow them to log your keystrokes. A well-known example of this is the Beef tool used in Kali Linux. It has the ability to record keystrokes. Hackers use this a lot to infect or hijack people's web browsers, and the scary part is, it can infect any browser on any operating system, even your phone. So be very careful as to not get a keylogger, or install an application that captures keystrokes. You may want to read further into the terms and conditions of the app if it says it can record your keystrokes, as you may not want it doing that. Another form of malware is a browser hijacker. Although this type of malware is specifically focused on web browsers, browser hijackers change the user's search engine preferences, and sometimes causes unknown links to pop up every time they open a new tab. A hijacker can also install keyloggers and other nasties into your browser, so the hacker on the other end can happily steal your information. Browser hijackers are also very dangerous and can be hard to detect, but usually, you get them through malicious extensions in the browser, usually from non-reputable sources. Google Chrome is by far the largest target as it has the largest percentage of the browser market share, and their Chrome web store is home to many thousands of extensions, apps, and themes, but the apps and extensions can be malicious, so you must be very careful when downloading a particular extension. You'd also want to check out what it can do before installing it. You can usually see this from a pop-up box that usually wants the user to confirm whether or not they want to install it. If it has things that don't sound good to you, simply do not install the extension or app. Next, we'll take a look at spyware and adware. Spyware is software that spies on your every move on your device. Spyware has often been known to collect a lot of user data from their operating system, and all systems are vulnerable to it, especially the big-name ones, Windows and Mac OS. But here's the scary part. Some operating systems are deliberately built to spy on their users, although that might be a bit of an overstatement, but Windows has some notable forms of tracking and telemetry bundled with it that then lets Microsoft know more about that user's PC or laptop. The same goes for Apple's Mac OS, but for Linux, you usually do not have to worry about spyware, because firstly, 99.9% of distros don't have telemetry or tracking, and 2. The free and open source philosophy is more respecting towards user privacy. However, some applications, most notably browsers, will collect information about your OS and require diagnostic data, but this is usually used for the right reasons, like improving software and detecting bugs or security flaws early on. However, with Windows and Mac OS, you have what's known as a backdoor. Essentially, a backdoor is something that gives someone access to your computer, but it's worse here because you're dealing with corporations, because anytime Microsoft is requested to give over user data and information to law enforcement or the feds, they will happily do it. It's a case of, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, but you usually don't have to worry about this unless you, the user, engage in some sort of illegal activity, or do something that attracts the attention of the police or feds. Adware is different because it just shoves ads in your face, and it's one of the least nasty forms of malware. Don't get me wrong, it's not nice having 50 or so ads pop up all over your screen, but adware is not as much of a worry. However, websites are often full of ads, and some applications force you to watch ads, perhaps to claim rewards, or it might be due to the fact you have to pay to remove them. I consider this to be a very mild form of adware. However, notable cases include BonziBuddy. He was regarded by many as one of the most damaging viruses of all time, but he was not an actual virus. He was rather a pest that would get in the way and try to collect as much information about you as possible. Several court cases were handed out to the company who made BonziBuddy because it violated privacy laws surrounding kids, which was and still is very punishable by law. The company stopped making BonziBuddy after around 2004, but it wasn't until 2008 where they went out of business, or sometime around then. Bonzi was also ridiculed with adware to try get the user to purchase stuff. In the olden days, Bonzi was paid for, so the users had to pay in order to be able to have more features, and this is where the adware came into BonziBuddy. However, since the demise of BonziBuddy, adware has been less prevalent. However, Microsoft are now the ones shoving ads into their operating system, with Windows 11's File Explorer and settings containing more and more ads as time goes by. It's very disgraceful to force users to use the world's #1 operating system and shove ads in their faces constantly. A lot of users would hate seeing ads in their File Explorer. You don't have that kind of issue on Linux, or even Mac OS for that matter. Anyway, we'll look at one more type of malware before drawing things to a close. The other most notable form of malware is a worm. However, worms cannot directly be installed. They do not have to be attached to files in order to spread. Worms most usually come from suspicious email attachments or somehow spreading through the network. A worm is more dangerous than a virus because, like ransomware, it too can spread over the network. Worms can also infect many operating systems, so you would want to be extremely careful opening emails from an unknown contact. as this is often a way they can steal data and infect one's PC or mobile device. Alrighty, that will do it for this video, folks. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and participate in my voting polls, and I will see you in my next video. Stay safe, don't get infected, and use common sense. That's my advice on how to not get infected by malware. Bye for now.